could you also, working with young people, it takes a different layer of understanding the things. How do you pick up, and how are early childhood teachers trained to pick up, the early signs of disabilities or early signs of developmental delay? How does the training look like? Are we skilled enough? Is the workforce skilled enough to pick up small nuances when you are dealing with a big, a group of children?
That is an interesting question, because when I studied in New Zealand, and we had 2 papers a year that we would have to sit around diversity and disability. And when I came to Australia, I did work in the long daycare situation, and I started to pick up on little things straight away about various children's characteristics. And I would ask the question, what are we doing about this, or have you got any files on this, or is there any record? And I was initially told, oh no, we don't do that here. So what do you mean you don't do that here? We don't approach the parents. I'm like, so how is a parent who's potentially in denial about their child having a disability going to get the right level of support if we don't say something first? And
it's a fair known fact, for most of the disabilities who are on intellectual side, early intervention always helps, and then smoothens the curve, supports the transition.
Yeah, and I was quite fascinated with that, because I was a bit like, I'm going to have to do some work here. And eventually they started to realise that it wasn't going to be the way, because I had to become I became the qualified teacher within the building. So I started to develop strategies to teach the people under me and around me that we were working together. And this is a collaborative approach. If we see a child struggling, we can't just sit back and not say anything, because mum and dad might already recognise it but not want to actually accept it. So that makes it really difficult. So eventually it was a team approach, and we did start doing that. In terms of the training that happens in Australia for specifics around early childhood, I'm not too sure. I know that there's extensions of the early childhood degree that you can sit around special education and disability, and I think it just depends if that's something you want to pursue, because some people don't want to pursue it. But yeah, early intervention's critical. There were several children that I couldn't have just let keep going through the education system without saying something at the age of 2, because we already recognised that that parent was facing challenges and the child was facing challenges.
But was that being diagnosed? So the bigger question was, one is you picking up signs, and a formal diagnosis by a GP or by a specialist, was that relevant in that space, or was it not relevant? Was that done?
Yeah, so once we started to recognise, we developed the system of recording the various things within a special book, and then once we had the discussions further on with the family, the book became evidence, so that the specialists and the doctors could actually see that within the education space, this is what the child's actually facing. So there were 4 children in particular that we had a specific learning log that was separate from their early childhood log, which we had consent to take photos and record. And then after 6 weeks, we handed that document over to the family, and they used it as part of the diagnostic process. Yeah, and one was diagnosed with autism. 2 had very severe hearing deficits because they actually had larger than normal adenoids and tonsils, and the other one was ADHD. So